Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to KWN Network. It's our pleasure and our privilege to be in your homes with you this Saturday morning. We trust that you are benefiting from what we are putting out every Saturday and Tuesday. Saturdays, we do more spiritual things. Tuesday, we look at more business stuff. We are currently doing the series, What is in Your Hand? At this point in time, we have done, this is now our third installment. We are currently talking what is in your hand, the stuff. This is part 2. Next week, we will be doing identifying your giftedness, your gift, your talent, and so on and so on. We are doing that next week. Then the following week, we will be doing applying and working your giftedness. Our anchor scriptures in this journey, what is in your hand, is Exodus 4. Verses 1 to 3, 2 Peter 1, verses 2 and 3, 1 Corinthians 1, verses 27 and 29. So, we read Exodus 4, verse 1. Then Moses said, "What if they do not believe me or listen to me and to what I say? For they may say, the Lord has not appeared to you." And the Lord said to him, "What is in your hand?" And he said, "A staff." Then he said, "Throw it onto the ground." And he threw it onto the ground. So God asks Moses a question. First, Moses asks God a question. "You are sending me, but what if they don't believe me?" Then God answers Moses by a question to say, "What is in your hand? What have I already given you? What have I already put in your life around you, in your circumstances?" He said, "A staff." So that staff then symbolized what God had put or puts in our lives. 2 Peter chapter 1, verses 2 and 3. "Grace and peace be multiplied to you in the knowledge of God and of Jesus our Lord. As his divine power, he has given us all things that pertain or that we need for life and godliness through the knowledge of him who has called us by glory and virtue." 1 Corinthians 1, verse 27 through 29. "But God has chosen the foolish things of the world to put to shame the wise, and has chosen the weak things of the world to put to shame the things which are mighty, and the base things of the world, and the things which are despised God has chosen, and the things which are not, to bring to nothing the things that are, that no flesh should glory in his presence." Last week we were looking at the staff of Moses in his hands, and we are going to continue with that as it gives us an insight into how your giftedness or your gift actually works and operates as it did in the life of Moses. Because Moses was a great apostle, a shepherd, an apostolic type, a Christ type, a foretaste of Christ, because we know that everything in the New Testament points to Christ, or is a foretaste, a foretell of who Christ would be. Moses uses his staff on many occasions to accomplish the purposes of God, and they got to know about that in Egypt, because every time Moses did something with his staff, they knew that the world was going to change for them, especially around issues of the plagues and things of that sort. It never ceases to amaze me that God drops in word of knowledge and wise nuggets and wisdom as we are doing what we do, as our giftedness kicks in. So we're going to continue to look at some of the stuff that happened with that staff. We looked at some last week. We'll continue. Number 1 for today, the staff and the darkness. In Exodus 10, verse number 10 through 21, Moses stretched forth his hand, and again there was another miraculous sign shown. What happened in this instance was that there was total darkness in the land of Egypt, except in the land of Goshen, where the people of Israel were at. The sons of Jacob, who were now settled in the land of Goshen, we see there being light where there was darkness everywhere else. What are we saying? Is that your giftedness actually provides light, illumination, way forward, guidance, where others will be totally stumped and they have no idea what's going on. They have no clue. But your giftedness should kick in and give you a nugget of wisdom or a thought of wisdom that will enable you to move forward, and then everybody will be helped. In this particular instance, we then see Pharaoh offering Moses a compromise. Sometimes the devil will try and offer you compromises, which could be almost good ways. Like if your country has been under colonialization. I remember in Zimbabwe, for example, the then Rhodesian government offered a compromise, which was an interim government or a Zimbabwe Rhodesia, when it should just be Zimbabwe. So be careful that when you are fighting and the devil is getting defeated, he normally offers you a compromise, a middle of the road path that will leave him with something to hold on to their little Rhodesia, but it should just be Zimbabwe. So be very, very careful as you exercise your gift, because the devil will know when he's defeated or when he's about to lose the battle, but you might not realize that he's losing. So as an interim, he might offer some form of compromise. In this instance, what he said to Moses is, leave your livestock, leave your wealth, or have partial freedom. Moses, of course, said, no, we are not doing that. We want full freedom. But your giftedness provides illumination, provides light, provides wisdom in a moment when everyone else may not even know how to move forward. Number two, the firstborns of Egypt. We see in Exodus 11 and 12 how the first Passover happened. The firstborn sons of all the Egyptians died, but the Israelite children were spared because there was blood on the lamppost, which are things that came out as a result of leadership and the relationship between God, Moses, and other leaders who were with him, such as Aaron, in that they used their gifts in obedience to God, and God therefore wrought a miracle or worked a miracle, and another sign, which was the final one that pushed the Pharaoh of Egypt to do what he needed to do. Number three, the staff and the desert. In Exodus 17 verses 5 through 7, the same staff that Moses had featured once again, in that when the nation of Israel, now going back home, was thirsty in the desert, because there's ordinarily a general shortage of water in any desert. This is now at Massah and Meribah, where they were complaining now because there was no water. In verse number 1 of chapter 17, and the Lord says to Moses, go before the people, take some of the elders, some of the leaders of Israel, accountability. Also take in your hand your rod, which you struck the river, your rod with which you struck the river, and go. So in this instance, there was thirst, there was no water, and Moses once again exercised his giftedness. There was accountability, and it was the same rod. He went, of course, he hit the rock, water issued out of the rock, and the people drank. So your staff then comes with provision, even in a desert environment. What am I talking about? Maybe the economy you are working is tough. Like I know right now, because of COVID and other difficulties, things are generally hard all over. You haven't been to work, or you have not been able to work or generate your revenue, whether you sell vegetables or you are a chief executive somewhere, because of the current COVID environment. But even ordinarily, whatever desert you might be walking through as part of your life journey, in that desert, your staff is able to provide whatever you might need for life and for godliness. In this instance, they needed water. So Moses applied the staff, and it issued water, and the people were able to drink. What is even more amazing is that this staff did not provide just water. It just did not provide water. It provided water in a desert. Not just water in a desert, but water in a rock, from a rock in a desert. So it was double difficult, the place from which it provided water, but it did. Understand then that your staff, your giftedness, will draw whatever resource, whatever provision you need from even the hardest of places. A desert is hard enough, but a rock in a desert is even worse. But it did. So whatever environment you might be working with, as hard as it might be, don't forget that your staff comes loaded with everything you need for life and for godliness. Number 4, the staff, Aaron and Hur. History records in Exodus 17 verses 8 through 11 the first battle between the Israelites as a nation, as it were, versus the Amalekites. In verse number 9 it says, and Moses said to Joshua, choose us some men and go out, fight with the Amalekites. So already Joshua's leadership had started to develop. He was the head of the army as it was then in the desert. So he was told by Moses to choose men to go and fight. Then Moses says, tomorrow I'll stand on top of the hill with the rod of God in my hand. He was now beginning to understand, Moses, what this thing that was in his hand really was and what it could actually do. That it was more than just a stick that he had cut off to guide sheep and to manage sheep. That it was actually the rod of God, because it had worked all sorts of miracles from Pharaoh's palace to when he first confronted Pharaoh with the snakes right at the beginning, to all those 10 plagues. He had now begun to understand, and it was clearer in his mind that, hey, this stuff is really the stuff of God. It is something important. It's not just a toy or a tool or something that is temporary. It is actually a big deal. I pray that you get to a stage where you begin to clearly understand and gain the confidence in the giftedness that God has placed in you and in your life. So Moses then went up the mountain, and they stood there as Joshua was in the valley doing battle. As long as the staff was held up by Moses in his right hand, obviously raised up more like something like this or whatever it is, or straight forth towards where Joshua might have been doing battle. As long as the staff was up, Joshua prevailed against Amalek. And whenever Moses got tired and his hands started to come down, Joshua would lose battle and lose ground to the Amalekites. You will prevail, ladies and gentlemen, as long as your staff is stretched, your giftedness is at the front. You are not trying to work someone else's giftedness. You're not trying to do it in your own strength, but your giftedness as given by God. As long as that is what you are putting forward, you are stretching it over the battlefield, whatever your battlefield might be, whatever your field of work may be. As long as your giftedness is stretched, it is applied over that area, you will prevail against whatever enemy or challenge you may be facing. As long as it is raised, as long as it is applied. There is a very important lesson here, ladies and gentlemen, that we learn. It took Aaron and Hur, who was his nephew Miriam's son, to hold up Moses' hand at a point when Moses got tired, because this battle started in the morning and it was carrying on the whole day, and none of us can hold our hands up for a whole day, or for even some of us just for 1 hour, whether it's in worship or praise, 30 minutes, 5 minutes, our hands are already tired. But Moses was holding his hands for hours as Joshua was doing the battle, and he couldn't do it anymore. He grew tired, but he needed to hold up his gift because he was the set man who needed to do so over this battle. So Moses and Hur, thank God for Aaron and Hur. Thank God for Aaron and Hur, who were wise enough to support Moses. We all need, especially if you are in leadership, you need an Aaron, you need a Hur, or men of different levels, different giftednesses than yours, who support what you do, who can hold up your hands and help you, who come up with ideas to say, no, the old man is tired, let's sit him down. They took a rope, they put it under him. They didn't move him from his position, they put it under him. In other words, they are not trying to dislodge you, they are not trying to kick you off your position, but they are supporting you. So they took a rope, put it under him, and held up his hands so that his giftedness remained straight. They held up his hands, they held up his ladder, they held up his voice and everything that he was, so that the old man remained in his position while Joshua did battle. You need men and women like that in you, around you, to support your ministry. It is called teamwork, ladies and gentlemen. You need God-filled, God-inspired, wise men, wise women with their own gifts, with their own abilities, who can come and support what it is you are actually doing. It is called teamwork. The battle sometimes is not something you can fight on your own. You need other prayer warriors with you, or people who are just doing their part while you are doing your part. They may not be perfect, they may be junior to you, but they are there to support you. I marvel that Aaron's entire career, from the time Moses returned from Jethro, Aaron's whole life became his job, his career, his vocation, his giftedness was then applied to supporting Moses. He did nothing else then than to support Moses. I'm sure he carried on with his family duties and so on and so on. So Aaron was actually called to support Moses, who was his younger brother. So the person you might be supporting might be uneducated. The old man, the old lady maybe can't even speak good English. They don't even smell nice, but they are still your senior in terms of the rankings of God. And therefore, you are holding up their arms. You are supporting them despite their weaknesses, their lack of this, they don't have front teeth. They're just a huge gap here. They don't have hair or whatever it might be. You are still there to support them. Moses also learned a lesson here that he alone, with his very clear giftedness as the leader, he was not able to do this by himself, and that he needed people who were around him to support him. I pray that you as a leader, wherever you are, you come to a place of realizing that on your own you might not be able to do certain things. You need people around you. You need a team around you. You can't play the guitar, the piano, the saxophone, the drums all by yourself. You need a team called a choir. You can't do it all by yourself if you're going to have a good service. You might need, you can't be speaking on the stage and at the same time you are on the sound desk fixing sound levels and what. You can't do everything by yourself. You need a team of guys who come also with their giftednesses, with their staffs, with their abilities and whatever. Let them do their part. It's not all about you alone. Moses, you need Aaron. Aaron, support your Moses, whoever you are. Support him, hold him up, hold his hand up, hold his ladder. Paul told Timothy that as a leader, he needed to have good relationships with people around him because those people participate in your ministry and enable your ministry. Not having them could actually turn out to be a problem for you. Find good team partners who will work with you, who will support you and do whatever it is you might need by way of help. I'm aware of a guy who actually, when he was going to get to request his first loan from a huge bank, and here we're talking literally hundreds of millions of dollars, going back now about 20-30 years, which was a great deal of money, still is. But you know what he did? He actually took his pastor, a man of prayer, and when he was sitting, when he went to a meeting at the bank in Egypt, to Afrixim in Egypt, he was seeking this loan, so he was doing whatever he was doing at the battlefront, talking to these bankers for this loan, and his pastor was in the hotel room praying, and indeed they succeeded. That's the kind of teamwork that we need to see. The pastor, his staff, prayer. You, Moses, you, Ned, you are there seeking money because you are in the marketplace or whatever it is. Your pastor is supporting you through prayer. That's teamwork. And of course, Ned must not forget that pastor who supported him when he has now made the money. That symbiosis must continue. Otherwise, then you are just using people. You use them, they pray for you, you succeed, you forget them. That's not how it is supposed to be. Number 5, the staff and the lice. Exodus 18, verse number 16. Moses tells Aaron to stretch his staff. You see, God did not just use Moses alone. In this instance, he used others here. He told Moses to tell Aaron to stretch his staff. Aaron did so in following the instructions of his senior, who was actually his younger brother. So Moses here is teaching, is being taught by God to also prepare and groom other leaders and the next generation of leaders, and not to hog the limelight by himself. He's being taught that, look, I've gifted you, you are the leader, be secure in your position and leadership, but I will use other leaders who are gifted to do certain things that you may not actually be able to do yourself. In fact, great leaders fade away, giving way to the next generation. As you grow in leadership, your role must change from that of doing everything yourself to that of encouraging others, to that of guiding others as they do the work that they need to do. John Maxwell put it this way, that a good leader is always working himself out of a job. The more dispensable you are, in other words, the easier they can get rid of you or put you to pastor, the more indispensable you actually become. So if after 10 years, 20 years in ministry or whatever you might be doing, you still have to do everything, then it means you don't have the right team around you, or you don't have a team at all, which is not good. Because the way of leadership is that as you grow in your role and in your position, others are coming, you seeing, learning what you're doing, and they are now emulating what it is you do. It is important to note that Aaron, even though he was Moses' older brother, he was exercising his giftedness as an assistant to Moses, his younger brother. This is fine. So whoever you are, wherever you are coming from, whether you are older or younger, smarter or not smarter, whoever you are serving, God has put you there for a reason. Your human credentials are not important. It's God's credentials in terms of how he has ranked you and in terms of how he has stacked the leadership or the ranks in the area that you are serving. Too many pastors, especially younger ones and aspiring leaders, can't wait to usurp power from the old men agreeably. This only works when both pastor or leader and the assistant are doing what they do correctly. Rebellion is not the way of God. Wait for your turn and step up as appointed properly. But also use the older, the leader, know when to get out. You don't want to get to a situation where your apprentice is still your apprentice 40 years later or whatever it is. By then, maybe they're already past their prime also. And it's necessary for them. That's where, rather, it's not necessary, but that's what then breeds rebellion. Because sometimes when these ones under you are not getting the chance to exercise their giftedness, either they will leave you and move and go and be on their own, even without a blessing, because without your blessing, because they need to exercise their gift. Because the exercise of their giftedness releases grace for them. Because remember what we said in the first episode of this series, that gifts come by grace. So the more you exercise your giftedness, the more grace flows in your life. And with that grace flowing, it means your issues are sorted. You are healed. There is provision for you. There is growth for you because you are moving in grace. So when you don't give your juniors the opportunity to exercise their gifts, in other words, for grace to flow in their lives, then what begins to happen is their lives are not moving. Only yours is going up. Only you are getting the newer cars, and your junior is still walking. Well, that doesn't quite seem right. If you got an associate pastor who's walking and you are driving an S600 or something like that, then something might not be quite right. Obviously, you as the leader might be ahead of them, but they've also got to be moving along. When water comes into a bay, every boat rises. It's not just the leader's boat that rises. Every boat rises because that water, that grace that is flowing, lifts everybody up. So yes, you are the leader. You probably do better and so on and so on. You earn more. That's fine. But your people should also be moving along with you. This applies in pastoral, in business, wherever, even politically, wherever you are. Don't hog the limelight to such an extent that those around you are now compelled to want to rebel because their lives are not moving on. Only yours is moving up. Number 6, Aaron's staff. After the Korah rebellion in number 16 and 17, it is interesting that people still wanted to mob Moses and beat him up and so on. Korah claimed that he too, like other people, they were also holy, and that Moses had no reason or the right to be above them. He was right insofar as he said that he also was gifted, he also was a leader. That was true. He was a leader of the people. And yes, he had also worked a miracle or two. You know what? They had indeed seen the hand of God. But Korah was wrong insofar as, you know what? Korah was a gifted leader. He had his own gift. Number 2, Korah was actually a Levite. In other words, he was a pastor, but he led a rebellion. Him and some Reubenites and some 250 other leaders, they rose up against Moses. In verse 8, Moses actually said, listen to me, you Levites. So they were Levites, they were associate pastors, junior pastors, they were his staff, they were his team, but they rebelled against him. So these were not unbelievers or gangsters, or they were actually churchsters. These are guys in the church, pastors, leaders, who are rebelling against their leader. Well, in fact, they were actually gangsters, because Moses then says in verse 11 that these guys actually ganged up against God, so they were gangsters. The ground opened up, swallowed them, which was really very sad. Them and their families, people were lost, which is never a good thing. You see, the other leaders of the people thought to themselves that because they were chosen, they were also leaders like the other leaders, like Moses and Aaron, and they saw no reason to defer to Aaron or to Moses. They figured they were as good as Moses. Well, you know, that's not actually true or correct, because God is a God of order and rank. This was not the place or the time or the lifetime for them to be rebelling and trying to do all these funny things with the nation in the desert, trying to get home. Moses was the man, and they needed to have honored Moses, to have realized Moses' rank and to honor him. Whoever you are, for example, if you are in Zayoja, Apostle Guti is the man. Why would you want to rebel against Apostle Guti if you are in his nation, in his system? It's foolishness to want to do things like that. Don't forget order and rank. Aaron's staff in this rebellion not only sprouted, it also budded, it blossomed, and it produced almonds. The gift and Aaron did not have to engage in needless fights and debates against Korah and people like that. When challenged, ladies and gentlemen, your gift will demonstrate itself, it will take its position in a godly fashion, and it will prove itself. Number 7, your human failing. God seemed to provide for Moses in his human failing. You will remember right at the beginning that God said he would, Moses, when he tried to negotiate his way out of the gift, out of the appointment to lead Israel out of Egypt, he says, I stammer, I can't do this. God said, I will provide a spokesman for you, and his name was Aaron. Even when he went to Pharaoh, before Pharaoh, even the first time and throughout the rest of these episodes, Aaron was there. What I'm saying is, God realizes that you've got human inability or incapacity somewhere in your life, whatever shortcoming it might be. Maybe you can't speak good English. God will make it so that you speak in your vernacular language, and there is an Aaron who will speak and interpret for you in English and amplify your voice. God will realize that you stammer, you are not eloquent, and he'll give you a spokesman who will help you one way or another. God will realize you are very, very poor with figures and you can't account, and he'll provide you somebody, an accountant type person who will do that part for you. So understand, or don't be frightened by your human inability, even in the area where God might want you to work, because Moses had to negotiate the freedom of the Israelites, but he couldn't speak. So he needed a spokesman. So sometimes even your biggest, your very, very job itself, you may not be able to do it well because you've got a human limitation there. Even in that area, God might provide. Let me use an example, which women, please don't beat me up. Say, for example, you are a mother. We always laugh at Pastor Chichi over this, because Pastor Chichi says, and she preached about this, you'll find it on the internet, that she doesn't, let me try and put it correctly, that she doesn't like cooking, or she can't cook, or however she put it, but she loves baking. So Pastor Chichi will bake and bake and bake, and the cakes and all that are excellent, but maybe when it comes to cooking, she needs help. So even in an area where you as a mother, one of the things you would normally do is to cook for your family. Well, if you can't, it's okay. Maybe Bishop will do the cooking. Somebody else in the household will do the cooking, even if cooking might be something you would ordinarily do. So the fact that you are limited in an area that might be ordinarily an area that you would be required to act, to perform, to do something, somebody else can surrogate for you and do that for you. God will provide for your human or natural failings. Moses was mature enough to say, hey, I'm not good at speaking, and allowed Aaron to do so on his behalf. Paul put it this way, 2 Corinthians 12, verse number 7, to keep me from being conceited because of these surpassingly great revelations, there was given to me a thorn in my flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me. These 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me, but he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weakness, so that Christ's power may rest on me. In other words, I understand that I am weak in this area, but God, by allowing God's grace to flow, as that grace flows, the power of Christ flows, and it rests in me. This is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, and in insults, and in hardship, and in persecution, and in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. I pray this level of maturity be your portion. The miracles in Moses' life Right from when he was first called, when he was in Midian, there were daily miracles. So Moses would have understood that, hey, I am nobody, I can't even speak. But look at these miracles. They are nothing short of the grace of God. It was easy for him to say, hey, it's not about me, it's not about God. God uses us despite our human inabilities, disabilities. Do not let those inabilities or disabilities stop you from doing what God has called you to do. Number 8. You need an Aaron. It is important to note that Aaron also had his staff. He had a gift, just like Moses. He served Moses as best as he could. In fact, God said that Aaron would be his spokesman in Exodus chapter 6. We see all that. God did not even bother to put Moses in a contest in the Korah rebellion to prove himself. He simply sent Aaron to go and do whatever needed to do. Leaders, we need to learn and to realize that we don't always have to fight and demonstrate who we are. I'll show them or whatever. Sometimes even a junior, somebody in your team should be able to go and do whatever it is that we might need done. This is an important leadership lesson that other leaders would have wanted to do it for themselves, but Moses allowed Aaron. Moses was wise enough to heed God's instruction to say, let Aaron do it, and allowed Aaron to exercise his staff and his giftedness. Trust the people God has given you. Trust your juniors to exercise their giftedness and do whatever it is they need to do. And he just allowed it to happen, and Aaron acquitted himself well. Aaron's function was to walk with Moses throughout his career. Moses would have lost a lot and the help that Aaron represented had Moses ignored Aaron the opportunity to exercise his giftedness under Moses. Leaders need to let the many people who are called under them that they need them, and they need to allow them to do what they are also gifted to do. Aaron and Miriam made a mistake that because they were now also doing miracles, Aaron threw his rod to the ground, also turned into a snake and ate all those other snakes. But that does not mean that you are now above Moses. Sometimes your junior will do even better than you. If you are wise, let them. That's good. But the junior must remember that they still are below this one in terms of rank until you are released to be able to go and start your own establishment or your own house. Remember where you sit and who you are. Aaron questioned Moses' authority. He challenged him. We all know the story about how leprosy then came into his life, into Miriam's life, which was really, really bad. If you understood what leprosy really is, we see this in Numbers chapter 12, when God then says of Moses, when a prophet of the Lord is among you, I reveal myself to him in visions. I speak to him in dreams. But this is not true of my servant Moses. He's faithful in all my house. When I speak to, with him I speak face to face, clearly and not in riddles. He sees the form of the Lord. Why then were you not afraid to speak against Moses, my servant? In other words, you should not have challenged him. Every leader needs an Aaron. Aaron also had a staff which turned into a snake, which sprouted, produced almonds. He was to be Moses' spokesman. He was a prophet to Moses. He was chosen. He also spoke through, God also spoke through him in Numbers 12:2. With her, they supported Moses' arms while Joshua did war. He was chosen to represent the Levites and so on and so on. So Aaron was also gifted. But Aaron, remember that you are serving Moses. Number 9. Different leaders. Throughout this whole episode, we see very clearly that many different leaders, from Aaron, Miriam, the leaders who were appointed at the advice of Jethro, leaders of 10, 100,000, 10,000 and all that, most of these guys, they also had gifts, including the gift of leadership. That's where they were chosen, and they should be allowed to lead. So whoever you are, in whatever sphere you are, allow other leaders to do what they do. In a team setup, there are times, Moses, when your giftedness, whatever it might be, may not be able to do everything you need. In this instance, Moses stammered and he needed a spokesman. God could have just looked at Moses and Moses' stutter went away. He could have healed him. He could have healed whatever thorn in Paul's flesh, but he didn't. Why? So that Moses can need Aaron and other leaders to help him, and the team is complete, so that Paul could learn humility, that it's not about him, it's about God and what he has put in your life. So don't despise some of the weaknesses and things that are happening to you. They are supposed to teach you a lesson. And from there, remember then that you need a team. That's why God may not heal or fix some of the issues in your life, so that your team can be built. Number 10. Oh, we run out of time now. Let's finish this quickly. Number 10. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Psalm 23. This stuff is supposed to bring comfort, relief, resolve where things are so hard, where there might be certain difficulties. We spoke earlier on about the stuff bringing water in a desert, from a rock in a desert. That's the kind of comfort we are talking about. Don't forget that. So sometimes when you are discomforted, when you are in trouble, when you are hurt and nobody seems to be able to help you one way or another, your gift can bring comfort. Number 11, the staff and the sea. Exodus chapter 14. Chapter 14, verses 10 through 16. Verse 16 says, raise up your staff rather. Stretch out your hand over the sea. Divide the water so that the Israelites can go through the sea on dry ground. The message here, ladies and gentlemen, in verse 21, Moses does so and the waters are divided. What are we saying here? Where there is an apparent brick wall right in front of you, a sea that you couldn't cross, you have no boat, you've got children, you've got some 2 million people or however many they were in that desert, and there's no ways you can carry them one by one, swim across with them one by one, while carrying your baskets, your livestock, and other things that Pharaoh tried to make you leave behind. And the 430 years of compensation for the slavery that they suffered, all that was with them. You can't swim across a sea holding all those on your back with you and your other leaders. No, a dry seabed was needed for them to walk through. So there are times when your gift will divide whatever, blast through, it will bazooka whatever difficulty may be in front of you. I pray that right now, whatever it is you are facing that's so hard, as you stretch your giftedness, it punches through whatever wall there might be. It divides whatever sea might be holding you back. It opens the vaults of whatever bank you need that loan or facility from, that it blasts through whatever regulatory situation that are denying you your license or holding you back from whatever you are doing. Your staff can divide seas, oceans, can blast through any wall or any difficulty you might be facing. Number 12, God's staff in Moses' hands. Exodus 4 verse number 20. So Moses took his wife, as he was now going back, leaving Jethro, going back to Egypt to go and pick up a whole nation. So Moses took his wife and sons and took the staff of God in his hand. That staff that he'd thrown to the ground turned into a snake, picked it back up. It was now the staff of God in his hand. Somewhere between the question, what is in your hand, in verse number 2, he threw it to the ground and so on and so on. It then became the staff of God in his hand. In other words, it's not your staff, Moses. It's the staff of God. You are a custodian, a steward, an exerciser of that staff, a wielder of that staff, but it is not yours. Why is this important? As you exercise your giftedness, realize that it is not about you, but it is about God who has trusted you with a giftedness, with something of great value that you cannot abuse, should not abuse. Don't use your giftedness or whatever God has placed in your hand for self-aggrandizement and all of those kinds of things, because if you do, at some point God may remove it. So it is about God. It is not about you. 2 Corinthians 4 verse number 2 says, and it is required of a steward that a man is found faithful. You are a steward. Be faithful with whatever God has put in your hand. Number 13. The key, ladies and gentlemen, is to understand why God has put this into your hands. Exodus 4 verse number 17 says, but take this stuff in your hand so that you can perform miraculous signs with it. In other words, your gift, as we said last week, comes loaded with miracles. It's already there. It's already loaded. Why I'm saying this, guys, is it's important to stop worrying about what you don't have and focus on what you do have. Most of the times we ignore our gift or think nothing of it so much that it doesn't actually help us. But if we are people who are circumspect and people of gratitude, we will realize that whatever God has put in our hand, it's not only enough, it's a signal of where God has stationed us in life. I'm not the Queen of England. I'm a man in the first instance, but I'm not British. So I cannot aspire and wish I was the King of England. No. That's not my station in life. That's not what God has called me or positioned me on this earth for. So even my giftedness is an indication of who I am. Maybe my giftedness is that I will impact on 5 youngsters in the kindergarten who become presidents, heads of organization, or whatever. Maybe that's my station in life. If you are a stepfather to some young man, some young woman, some young lady, you are a stepfather or you are a stepmother to whoever it is, maybe that's all you gotta do. Imagine that guy, that President Obama, who was President Obama's stepfather, married the mother. After the mother divorced Mr. Obama from Kenya, they got divorced. Then she married this guy, I think he was Indonesian or something of that sort. Imagine if he had abused young Barack and whatever else that happened. He didn't know. He had no way of knowing that that boy who was his stepson was to be one day for 10 years be the president of the United States. You don't know that little child you are looking after. You are a pastor in the kindergarten. You don't know who that child is. You don't know their future. So do the best you can wherever God has put you. Let your gift do the best it can wherever God has put you. Miracles will come for those little kids. They are looking at you. You are shaping their lives, their minds, their way of thinking, their lives, their kindness, and so on and so on. So whoever you are, wherever God has put you, the miracles in your stuff, the miracles in your giftedness, may they manifest. I pray that God opens your eyes to see what He has placed in your hands and what it can do. That stuff did so much for Moses and an entire nation of 2 million people. In that desert, they had water. In that desert, they had manna. They had chicken every day in the desert. This quail would just come in, sit there, and just maybe stop breathing or whatever. They would take them, take off the feathers, and eat chicken every day. That's the provision of God as we exercise our giftedness, whatever it might be. I pray that you recognize what God has put in your hand and how adequate it is for your life and godliness. Father, thank you today for opening our eyes to see what it is you've placed in our hands. It might be little in our opinion. It might be small, it might be insignificant, but you are God, and you put it in our hands for a purpose, and you are able to give us full life, godliness, fulfillment by what you have already given us. We honor you for that giftedness. Forgive us, Lord, where we have demeaned and diminished your giftedness and gift in our lives, where we've taken it for nothing, where we have despised it and said, mana, what is this mana? Forgive us, Lord. Thank you for your kindness and your gentleness. Thank you for correcting us in your love, not in your harshness. Thank you for not judging us, but helping us. In Jesus' name we pray. Well, we are done for today, ladies and gentlemen. Next week, we will be teaching on how you identify your giftedness. May God bless you. May God give you a great week. May the Lord just shine His face upon you, focus on you on this minute, this day, and make you the star of the moment and open your eyes to see what He has done. God bless you. Remember, wisdom is the principal thing. We'll see you on Tuesday for 100 explosive business principles. Don't forget, thank you for those who've sent your questions. We are structuring those. We'll do a season of them, and we'll do them as video clips, 5-minute video clips, 2-minute video to send to answer your various questions. So keep them coming. Thank you, and God bless you. Wisdom is the principal thing. Goodbye. See you on Tuesday.